Okay. Everyone should have received a notification from Zoom that the recording of this public meeting for the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association on August 14th has started. This recording is hosted on Zoom, but is found on our website, www.jeffreyspoint.org. You are not required to be visible on camera at any time. You are welcome to keep your camera off, submit questions through the chat, and change your name as it appears on the screen so that you are not searchable. A reminder that we do have a development project this evening, and because of that, we will be reading out the names of abutters, and abutters will have the opportunity to speak out loud, to ask questions, to interact with the presentation after it has completed. We will go through some more housekeeping things in just a moment, but first I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Margaret Farmer, and I'm co-chair of the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association. Rachel Blomerth, who is the other co-chair, is unfortunately unable to be here this evening. Susan, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Susan Huang. I am the vice chair. Josh?
Hey, I'm Josh Schmidt. I'm sorry my video camera isn't working. I'm the secretary. Margaret?
Okay. And Andrew Park, our treasurer, is unfortunately not available to join us this evening, but he is here with us in spirit, I'm sure. So announcements. First of all, we'd like to thank everyone who attended the JPNA potluck in July. More than 30 members of the community came together to get to know one another and have a chance to interact, something that we know that people have been asking for since the pandemic started and meetings went online. I'd like to take just a quick moment to thank every member of the board who was very involved in making sure that event happened, as well as Ron Stoya, who graciously brought down tables and chairs. A couple of other announcements. A reminder that this Saturday is Eastie Pride. It is in Pierce Park. It is a free event and open to everyone, and has great events and opportunities and activities for people of all ages. It is from 2 to 6 p.m. There'll be music by several live bands, as well as the Veronica Robles Cultural Center, and all are encouraged to attend. A quick reminder that the East Boston Soup Kitchen is always looking for donations of food, feminine products, and toiletries. You are welcome to drop donations off at the Paris Street Church, especially on Tuesdays when they do active distributions. If you wish to drop things off at another time, we encourage you to contact them directly, but they are always looking for our help. There is hunger in our community, and we can all work to help eradicate it. A quick reminder that the JPNA has scheduled the Brophy Park Movie Night for Friday, August 25th. It will be, again, it will be in Brophy Park. Shorts, which start before the movie, start at approximately 7:45, with the movie itself starting at approximately 8 p.m. We will be watching Coco. We will be putting out sidewalk chalk and a few other activities for the kids so that they can do them as they're getting ready or need to settle down. Pajamas are welcome, and as is everyone who is welcome to join us. There are also movie nights across all of Boston's other parks. We encourage you to go to boston.gov to check that full listing. Quick updates on upcoming meetings for the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association. There is no planning and zoning meeting scheduled for this month. Again, that means that there will be no Wednesday planning and zoning meeting that is focused on development. And the October monthly meeting will be moved to Tuesday, October 10th, to avoid the Monday holiday. We will, of course, announce that again as we get closer to the date, but just a quick warning, especially for all of our elected officials, their representatives, and staff members of the city, we do not expect you to show up on a holiday. A reminder that we will have one gorgeous week of traffic coming up on September 1st to September 7th. On September 1st, the Sumner Tunnel reopens, and on September 7th, school starts. So we encourage everyone to enjoy that one gorgeous week of traffic before it goes away because of all the buses. I'd like to take a moment to hand things over to Josh Schmidt, who's going to give us a quick update on the Golden Stairs Community Preservation Act grant application status. Josh, do you want to take it over for a minute?
Sure. Thanks, everyone. So anybody who was able to attend the beginning of Eastie Week, I was able to present in front of ZoomX that we were going to go for this Community Preservation Act grant to revitalize the Golden Stairs Park and the terrace. The Golden Stairs haven't been renovated since 2001. So there's a lot of work to be done, and it's such an important part of our community and part of our rich history that we really only have that remaining part of our history because they were tore down the immigration center. So with that, we are working with Harborfront now, to get everything set up. Just going through some records recommendation. There's a pretty lengthy process based on law. So we'll be starting that process with a grant eligibility request on August 31st, with hopefully a request to do a full grant by November. So keep in tune, and if you have any ideas about how you want to make the Golden Stairs better, let me know.
Okay, thank you. We will start off this evening with Officer Mosley from A7. He's going to give us an update on what has been happening in the past month in our community. We do let people know that you can submit questions while Officer Mosley is speaking. You do not have to wait until he's finished, so that we can address your concerns and questions after his presentation. Thank you. Go ahead, Officer Mosley.
Evening all. Also in attendance with me is Officer Alvarez and Officer Figueroa. I'm gonna just go through some of the stuff here that we have for your area. On August 3rd, there was a stolen motor vehicle arrest, and that was in the area of actually Saratoga and Trident Street, East Boston, and it involved a juvenile, and the juvenile was placed under arrest for possession of a stolen motor vehicle, refusal to submit to police, and unlicensed operation as well. So on August 1st, in the area of Cottage and Sumner Street, the DCU, which is the Drug Control Unit, we're conducting surveillance and observation of any drug activity, and they did summons a couple of individuals for the, let me see, it says that they were being summoned into East Boston District Court for possession of Class B substance, which is crack cocaine. So they're still, and the DCU is still working on that. On August 5th, we had an assault and battery warrant arrest, and that was in Maverick Square, right at the 7-Eleven there in Maverick Square. The employee of the 7-Eleven had called the police because he had the suspect had hit him in the head with a bottle. When the police contacted the police arrived. The suspect, who was a female, decides that she's going to play games and say she doesn't know her name and giving false names and trying to furnish a false name. But she was positively identified, I should say, by a card that she had from one of the shelters in her possession. So she was placed into custody and arrested on the warrant for receiving stolen property, which was actually out of the state police. It was a warrant that was generated by the state police, but she was also charged with the following as well: assault and battery, furnishing a false name to law enforcement, and disturbing the peace as well. On August 4th, there was a B&E arrest. This happened at Friday, August 4th, about 8:40 a.m. The officers had received a call for break and enter in progress at 167 Maverick Street. It says that upon arrival, they contacted the building manager, stated that the side door was broken and there was someone inside. Officers made entry into the building and located a male suspect. The manager stated that he was at the location the day before and the doors were locked and secured at about 12 p.m. Officers observed the frame to the back door was broken. So that gentleman was placed under arrest for B&E, breaking an entry. So on once again, this is one of the other big things is the scams. On Friday, August 4th, about 5:52 p.m., the officer that was assigned to the front desk took a fraud report. The victim stated that he received a phone call from a scammer who was attempting to impersonate an Amazon representative. The scammer threatened to report the victim for money laundering to the FTC. The victim gave the last four of their social security number and ID information to this individual. So the victim's bank, which was Rockland Trust, notified the victim that an unknown person demanded a transfer of $14,500 into an escrow account. When this didn't work, the scammer began to call from different numbers and impersonate himself as a police officer. The victim stated that he's since blocked all the phone numbers. They're trying to get you one way or another, these scammers. Excuse me. On August 14th, about 60 Border Street, there was a commercial B&E. About 10 a.m. on Monday, August 14th, officers responded for a radio call for a break-in entry report at the Grid Management, 60 Border Street. So upon arrival, to the building manager, who stated that there was a possible sign of a possible break-in, stated the building was locked and secured on Friday, 8/11 at about 4 p.m. When he returned the following Monday, 8/14, about 9 a.m., he noticed things missing. There was a list of things that was missing: 2 laptops, 3 iPads, Amex credit card, uncashed checks, money orders, keys to different properties, cash box that had total with a total of $500 cash and $500 in quarters. The staff stated that the security camera system has been out, and the hard drive where the footage is stored was also missing. So this is still under investigation by the detectives who will be handling that commercial B&E. Then on August 12th, we had a package larceny of packages, and that was at 71 Lubeck Street at about 8 p.m. The officer that was assigned to that area received a radio call for a larceny report at 71 Lubeck Street. When the officer responded, he spoke to the victim, said he received a notification about his package had been delivered on today's date, which was the 12th, at approximately 2 p.m. He says that when he got home around 3:50 p.m., he find the package. He received a delivered notification was not to be found. Say that he had contacted the delivery company about the missing package and is still waiting to see if they will resend the items. Is that the Ring camera, which was directly across the street from that address, he observed the Ring camera. So whether or not detectives will be able to get any footage from that, that's what they do. That's that'll be part of their investigation. So some of the other things that we've had, which is there's been a crackdown on Central Square as far as the people loitering there and also drinking. There's been a couple of incidents. I know that there was a stabbing that happened up there. They have identified a suspect who is currently out and about, and he's on the run pretty much from the police, but he's still hanging around. But I'm pretty sure they're pretty close to grabbing this individual. So the captain, in response, what the captain has done is he has assigned. He's had the supervisors assign a code 19, which is you have an officer, whether it be a 1-man or 2-man unit, who is to stay there for at least an hour and just observe and monitor the area. What really, really did it for the captain to push this was one day he was doing traffic, and Veronica Robles had her camp. The kids they would go down to the park, and they would play in that park, and they were having their faces painted and all that. And what really did it for the captain is when he saw one of the kids try to go over and get some water, and one of the drunks that hang out there pushed this little kid away from the water fountain. So at that point, enough was enough. So it's still ongoing, where the officers go down there and they take their code 19 and, like I said, monitor. And if they have to remove them, they remove them. If they also check them for warrants, if they have any warrants and if they're subject to arrest, then that's exactly what's going to happen. Just trying to clean that area up. Some of the other things that are going on is that they've had on Border Street. This is probably last week, as a matter of fact. They had Sunday into Monday. It was a group of teenagers broke into the Umanabon school, and they stole some items. Well, the same group of individuals were also seen in Target and Revere, and they were using stolen credit cards, and they're teenagers, stolen credit cards, and all kinds of other nonsense. They were going there, ransack the store, take whatever they want. So now, in lieu of them being in trouble for breaking into the Umanabon school, they're also the detectives also gonna seek complaints for them for Target as well. So that's pretty much all that I have. Any questions?
Yep, we have one in the chat. So thanks for joining us this evening. We see a lot of cars parked and idling for long periods of time in the Maverick
Yes.
Square area, as may
Yes.
frequently happen elsewhere. Is there any way to better inform people or perhaps enforce the anti-idling law? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you tell me, just like you guys have, and I just send the email to the supervisor, and everything trickles right on down to the officers that are on patrol. That is not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
There's no other ones in the chat unless somebody wants to ask a question right now.
I have a quick question, Josh. Officer Mosley, do you have an update on, you did briefly mention the stabbing that occurred a little while ago. Do you have any additional information? Has someone been arrested? Should
No.
people
So
avoid the area?
at first, it was kind of tough just trying to get an ID. Because everybody knows nobody wants to talk. If that's their friend, that's their friend. They're not going to say anything. So an individual has been positively ID'd. And so there has been sightings of him. I guess yesterday he was seen, and then once he kind of ducked his head out and saw the police, he took off. So he is definitely on the officer's radar, and we hope that he is apprehended quickly. So
Okay.
yes, there it is, and that whole thing is still under investigation by the detectives trying to piece things together and see how everything transpired is what it is.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much. Just
you know what, you're very welcome.
Josh is going to place into the just to let you know, Officer Mosley, Josh is going to place into the chat the phone numbers for both the front desk and the community service office.
You got it. I was going to tell you that anyway.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yep.
And we do that because we remind people that they are welcome to, if you have a question, if you have a concern, you're welcome to reach out to the police directly in a way that you are comfortable with. Also a reminder that there are several services that the police offer. For instance, in their lobby, they do have a way to dispose of expired or unused medication.
Yes.
Don't let these things, number one, do not throw them in the toilet or down the sink because it's bad for the water. Don't want to do that. But also you don't want to let these things lay around for others to take them or take advantage of you having them. So please do take advantage of that. And I'm sure we will see you at EC Pride.
No, I'll be on vacation.
Okay. But we'll see somebody else at EC Pride, right?
Yeah, you're probably going to see this guy right here. He'll be there. Trust me.
Okay. Excellent.
He might have a fishing rod, but he'll be there.
But hey, that's fine. Some good music and doing some fishing. That's totally fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. You guys have a good one.
You too. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
So we do have, next up, we have the mayor's liaison, but we have a little bit of change. This month, we are joined by Manuella Villagomez, who is our new mayor's liaison. Many people may remember that our old liaison, who was absolutely wonderful, has been transferred to a different department in the city of Boston. And she was very kind to do double duty for quite some time, but how now, luckily for her, she's been able to go back to having just one job. But Manuela, we thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know that this is your first meeting, so we won't expect too much, but we'd love it if you could introduce yourself, share with us how you would best like us to reach out and contact you and interact with you, and if there's anything going on at the city that we should know. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm Mela. Manuela is my full name, but I definitely go by Mela. I just want to introduce myself. I'm the new liaison for East Boston. I think if you want to contact me, it's fine to text or call or email, and I can share all those details with Josh, who can put them in the chat for everyone to get. But yeah, just here to facilitate anything that y'all need with City Hall, any processes that you would like facilitated or need help kind of figuring out. That's what I'm here for. And as far as any updates, no, just looking forward to EC Pride Day and just trying to get everything in order to see if the mayor can come and make it out. But just like still working at her schedule. She just got back from vacation, so more on the lookout for that. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. We appreciate it, you being here. I know that you've met with several other community groups, and we've reached out to sit down with you as a board as well. So we're looking forward to having a conversation with you. Manuela will share that information with Josh, and he'll put it in the chat of how to reach out and contact her. We encourage everyone to kind of stagger your comments, as I can only imagine that they're starting to come in fast and heavy from everyone already. But we thank you so much for being here and appreciate you taking the time. I'm just going to check really quickly. We had invited someone from Boston Water and Sewer Commission to give us a quick update on the construction that's going on Sumner Street. And I'm just looking to see if I see them really quickly. They were not sure they'd be able to join us this evening. I do not see them. But as we have additional information about the construction on Sumner Street, we will be happy to share that information. We will post it on our Facebook page and share through our social media. So we have two other things on our agenda this evening. One is the board election. As most people know, we have an election every year. We have full five board members, and every year we have an election for at least two of those seats. Currently, there are 3 seats that are up for re-election. They are myself, Margaret Farmer, Andrew Pike, our treasurer, Rachel Blomarth, who is our vice chair. So those 3 seats are up for re-election. Rachel Blomarth, who we are grateful to for her many years of service here at the JPNA, is stepping down. She has recently had her second child, who is incredibly cute, and we are all grateful that they are all happy and healthy. But the time has come for her to move on to other activities. So we do have one open seat. We do have someone who is running for the open seat, and both myself and Andrew are trying to run for re-election. Quick word about how this is going to work. Both Carolina and myself are going to take a minute to introduce ourselves, talk about why we're interested in participating in the JPNA, and then voting will happen online later this week, just as it will happen for the project, the 338 to 342 Sumner Street, that is going to be voted on as well. Regular voting rules apply, meaning that in order to vote, you need to be present at this particular meeting, and then you need to have been present at one meeting in the past 3 months. And also the July potluck does count. We did have a sign-in sheet at the potluck, which we encouraged people to sign, and it was announced several times that people need to sign it to be eligible, and they did so. In order to be eligible to run, you need to be here present at this meeting and be eligible to vote, which Carolina is. We did verify that. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to cover in regards to that. I don't think there is. So I will just say I did see Carolina here a moment ago. Carolina, if you could take a moment, we'd prefer if you turn on your camera, but you're not required. If you could take a moment to introduce yourself, talk about your interests. Oh, there you are.
There you are. Here I am. Hello, thanks so much. So if we haven't met already, my name is Carolina Torva. I'm a writer and chronic illness disability advocate, and I've been living in Jeffreys Point for 8 years. My heart is in East Boston. Every time I leave my house, I am so grateful to live in such a vibrant neighborhood. I regained my ability to walk along the Harbor Walk. I built a life here with my husband, Michael Ross, and my dog and cat. I've been nourished by our restaurants like KO Pies, now Seabiscuit, and I've been deeply inspired by exhibits at the ICA watershed. Jeffreys Point is sacred to me. As a former correspondent who specialized in international politics, I'm particularly interested in making the community process as transparent as possible. I will focus on community, sustainability, and accessibility while working to preserve historical aspects of the neighborhood. I will stand up to big developers and do everything I can to make sure the community's concerns are not only heard loud and clear, but taken seriously and incorporated into plans. I really look forward to working with you, to hearing from you, and to boosting all of our voices. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Sorry about that. I muted myself. Thank you so much, Carolina. We appreciated that. It is a pleasure to meet you. I did realize there was one other thing I was supposed to announce, is that if there's anybody else who wishes to be nominated or nominate someone else, you do have the opportunity to do that. And you have the opportunity to do that until the end of this meeting, because technically voting does not commence until the meeting has ended. So if anyone else wishes to throw their hat in the ring, they are certainly welcome to do that. My name is Margaret Farmer. I'm going to only speak for just a few seconds because I suspect people get sick of hearing from me during these meetings. I realized that this year is my 20th year of living in Jeffreys Point, here in East Boston. I originally viewed this apartment just to be polite, but found that I loved it and am now supremely grateful that I took the time to come over and see this wonderful community. I enjoy being a member of the board and being able to be active on behalf of the community, ask questions, and also help keep our elected officials accountable, because I think that's one of the things that we do and do well. One of the things that we have changed here in the past year at the JPNA is that we've tried to put together more opportunities for neighbors to meet each other outside of these meetings. And that's something that I would like to continue to see happen. I think the JPNA can be a catalyst for bringing people together and learning more about one another. And I think that's more important now than ever. As I said, I don't want to talk too long, so I will shut up. But thank you to everyone who is a board member and who's interested in being a board member, as we appreciate your hard work. I don't think people realize how much goes on behind the scenes in order to make things look as smooth as possible. But everyone puts in a great deal of effort. And with that, I will just say that the dates for voting, if you are eligible to vote, you will receive a ballot in your email, the email that you've most likely used to register for this meeting, no later than 7 p.m. on Wednesday, August 16th. And voting will extend until 5 p.m. on Friday, August 18th. No late ballots will be accepted. If you look for your ballot on Wednesday evening and do not see it, please check your spam folder, as 90% of the time that's where they are located. If you are unsure if you're eligible to vote, you are welcome to email us at board@jeffreyspoint.org, and we can verify for you if that is the case. And also, if you have any questions about voting or about the entire process, please feel free to reach out to us, as we will address those as well. Now I'm going to move on to the last thing on our agenda, which is the 338 to 342 Sumner Street presentation. A reminder, there will be a vote taken this week about this particular project. For some background, it has previously presented at one planning and zoning meeting in April. The proposal is to change occupancy from ground level retail and 4 residential units to ground level retail and 6 residential units with renovations and a vertical addition and 2 private roof decks. There will also be an upgrade to full life safety upgrades and exterior improvements. The developer is the Petruccelli 2018 Irrevocable Trust. The owner, I believe, is the Petruccelli family, who I did see is here this evening, and they are represented by attorney Richard Lynds. A quick reminder that you are welcome to submit questions while attorney Lynds is making his presentation. You do not have to wait until the end. At the end of attorney Lynds' presentation, we will read off the names of people who are abutters, who will have the first opportunity to speak out loud. If you are not an abutter, you will be invited to submit your questions in the chat. Thank you very much, and take it away, Richard.
Thank you very much, Margaret, and good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, let me introduce myself. I'm Richard Lynds. I'm an attorney here in East Boston with a business address 245 Sumner Street. With me tonight is Sharon Gentges from Joy Street Design. She's the project architect. We also have Anthony Petruccelli, who is the owner representative for the Petruccelli Family Trust that owns this property. By way of very brief background, I mentioned this at the Planning and Zoning Subcommittee. This has been the Petruccelli family home for the better part of the last 5, maybe 6 decades. The Petruccelli family has lived here and remained in the community for a good deal of time. This property is in need of substantial upgrades and repairs. They've decided that it is time to perform a full renovation and make a substantial investment in this property. And they will do so with limited displacement of existing tenants in trying to work on this through a phased approach. More importantly, this will continue to be owned by the Petruccelli family after the renovations are completed, and this will remain as a rental property. So I just want to point out just some quick background. This is not necessarily the typical development project that you would see, but certainly a prominent enough property in the neighborhood, and I think you'll be very happy with the visuals that Sharon has come up with for the rendering for this project. As Margaret said, this is a pre-existing mixed-use building already. It's a multifamily dwelling that has space for ground level retail. It was used historically as a retail shop by Anthony's grandfather way back in the day. That lower level space has not really been operated for retail, but it's certainly set up for a good retail space, and we'd like to bring that back. That corner, or that intersection of Cottage and Sumner Street has retail on all 3 other corners, and we feel it would balance out that corner to maintain the retail at that level. The project itself would involve the confirmation of the existing occupancy of the building, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we get into the overall plans. But then ultimately we would change the occupancy, maintain that ground level retail, and then propose to have a total of 6 units with the complete rehabilitation of the whole building. And we feel that the 6 units really represents more of a reprogramming of most of the existing space. We're not adding a lot of additional space to the building, and then you'll see that from the plans that we walked through with Sharon, but provides an opportunity to give us a really nice, good-looking building for this area, and a substantial improvement to what's existing. If we can jump to the next slide, please, that would be great. So I'm going to jump through these relatively quickly because it gives us a bird's eye view and some overview, but we can always come back to those with any specific questions. If we could jump to maybe the next slide. Yeah, this is probably a good place to start. So what we're looking at here is we're looking up on the right side of your screen is Sumner Street, sort of towards the lower portion of your screen is perpendicular to Sumner is obviously Cottage Street. And you can see the existing structure there in the corner. I don't have the ability to put the pointer, but you can see the lower level with the brick and the white siding as you go up 2 levels. There is a 4th level already existing on the building, but it doesn't really have, probably a lot of good architectural character that you typically would see with newer construction or the newer buildings that have been renovated around the neighborhood. So Sharon has come up with a nice way to really clean up that 4th level and square off the building so that we can really introduce something that fits better with the context of the the changing parts of this neighborhood that we've seen over the past several years. Next slide, please. So just another view. This one is looking up Cottage Street. So Sumner Street is the middle of your screen. The building, we showed 338 Sumner with a red dot. That's actually a little further behind 338 Sumner. But you can see the building there on the corner with that 4th level addition that's pre-existing. Next slide, please. Just a different view, and we can come back to this. Next slide. Probably a better look here. So in looking back down at the building, this is the Sumner Street elevation you're looking at. Gives you a better view of the back portion of the building that is on Sumner Street. That's a little over 3 stories. You can see the buildings don't necessarily line up. So we're dealing with sort of an L-shaped site condition with that 4th level, as you can see here at the corner of Cottage and Sumner. Next slide, please. So looking up, this is standing at the intersection of Sumner and Cottage. You can see the buildings off to the left side of our screen. And again, this does not have a lot of the typical character you would see. It's your 80s era vinyl siding and vinyl windows. The lower level retail space has been mostly bricked over. Really doesn't have a lot of welcoming feel to the retail space that probably exists elsewhere in the neighborhood. So our goal would be to have some improvements at that lower level as well. Next slide, please. Just looking back towards Cottage Street to give you a view of that building that's on the Sumner Street side. You can see it's a little over 3 stories, or it doesn't necessarily line up with the 3 stories that are both left and right as well. Next slide, please. So this is a good view of the existing condition, and this is what we had Sharon utilize in order to sort of recreate the image of what this building would look like and what the what the goal was for the site here. If we could jump to the next slide, I believe that's the rendering. Here we go. So I'm going to bring Sharon in at this moment to just talk a little bit about how we've approached the site and what we've come up with for design and some of the materials, and how to reintroduce that lower level retail space. So Sharon, if you could talk a little bit about this rendering, that would be great.
Sure. What's interesting about this building is that it really is, in a sense, 2 buildings. You've got the building that's on the corner of Cottage Sumner, and then you have what is sort of a triple decker right on Sumner Street. And so one of the things we tried to do was to give them each a little bit of their own identity. There actually are 2 separate entrances. So there's one residential entrance on Cottage Street and one residential entrance on Sumner. So rather than looking like one very large building, breaking it up to look like 2. We're not necessarily painting it white, by the way. This is just a neutral color to sort of take color out of the conversation, but we would want to give it some sort of color once we get further into this. Then we want to open up the first floor retail space. So putting back in what probably would have been there, which was some sort of storefront, making the entry a little bit more visible and friendly. And then you can see that the door on the corner is not accessible. If you look down the street, there's going to be a second door into that retail space. So the retail space will be fully accessible. And then, the windows, as Richie said, really sort of went with that 1980s slider, less is more approach to windows. So we're trying to put back something closer to the original window pattern, which is 3 windows for a triple decker facade, and then just sort of continuing that pattern around the corner. And then you see the 4th floor. So we're extending a little bit that 4th floor addition, putting a roof deck on top, but keeping it pulled back from the street edge, so that what you really see are the parapets and the facades of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floors.
If we could just jump to that next slide, please. Thank you, Sharon. So just a quick overview of the site and the zoning that's applicable. This is currently in the 3F 2000 district. I'm sure as many of you regular JPNA attendees know, we are in a planning process for new zoning, which is likely to be announced in the coming weeks or months. So we're still operating under the old Article 53 because this was filed before any amendment to the zoning code has been announced. So we will proceed through the process under old zoning. As you can see, the lot is L-shaped. The building pretty much occupies the entire site that exists with that building, that separate standalone building that Sharon talked about on Sumner Street, extending back toward, a little bit behind the second lot of that building on Cottage Street. But as you can see, we do occupy a good portion of the lot, which is not unusual for corner lot conditions in buildings like this. We're not that much different of the building immediately to our right, just before that passageway. That too occupies pretty much all of its site. And that seems to be the prevailing density along that section of Sumner Street for most of the buildings in that area. So we can jump to the next slide, please. We include this only because it's important to talk about, flood and resiliency. That seems to be part of all the conversations these days with respect to any new development. We're not building a new building. However, I think it's important to note that we are pretty close to the 0.2%. It is a flood zone X condition. We don't necessarily have to comply with any flood regulations, but I thought it was important to point out that we are pretty close to that. With that said, even though we would be permitted to look at, utilizing some of that subgrade level, we're not proposing any of the livable space in the lower levels. So we will respect sort of the planning for the future. If this flood zone were to change or intensify over time, this building would not have to have any special adjustments made to it because we're not proposing anything below the base flood elevation. Next slide, please. Quick overview of the zoning relief that would be necessary. So right now, this is currently considered a mixed-use building. It is a non-conforming use for the 3F district. We're going to continue with that mixed use. We are intensifying that a bit by adding 2 more dwelling units. So that would be considered an extension of a non-conforming use, not necessarily something that requires a variance, because again, we already have that pre-existing condition. The required minimum lot size in the district is 2,000 square feet. We're only at 1,840 square feet for the current condition. So even though we don't really change anything with respect to the building itself and generally the overall coverage, anytime you add units, you have to take a look at what your minimum lot size is. So this, from a technical standpoint, doesn't comply with the minimum lot size today, and wouldn't comply with any change. So we sort of lump that in with the extension of non-conforming use as sort of a tandem variance that we would be requesting. We have the sufficient minimum lot size, front yard, side yard. Our rear yard condition, we don't necessarily change much with respect to the rear yard, wherever that rear yard is identified. And the reason I say that is, if we look at the building as it fronts on Cottage Street, the rear yard would actually be the side yard on Sumner Street, and that condition doesn't necessarily change much. So we, from an interpretation standpoint, don't believe there's any difference with respect to the rear yard that's being proposed. There is some modifications to the back of the Sumner Street building, but that would be considered the side yard, and there's really no difference between the 2.5 feet that's required in what we're proposing. We do increase the floor-to-area ratio, and that's the total amount of square footage that would exist in the building from what exists today. Now, the 1.35 that exists today is measured based upon what the habitable square footage is in the building. We believe the city doesn't count certain portions of this building. We're counting the entire building. So even though the changes in the building really involve the upper level, that 4th level, sort of squaring off that addition, we're actually giving the city an entire accounting of the building and how it should be occupied. So that's why it's a 2.78. But the real changes, as you'll see in the elevations, are really involved only on the 4th level. The height of our building, total height, would be 40 feet, and that's an existing condition as well. However, because we are changing some of that upper level, including that penthouse condition, we are required to comply with the zoning code, which currently sets it at 35 feet. So to the extent there is any addition to that 4th level, we would require a variance for that height. The open space currently is, as I said, we pretty much occupy the entire lot. The open space currently is less than the 300 square feet that's required under the zoning code. 300 square feet would be hard to achieve on a site like this that occupies most of the lot, and that's 300 square feet per unit. However, we do actually improve that condition by adding a few of the roof decks that we'll show in the plan in a moment. So we actually are going to improve some of the usable open space on the site, but we'd still be less than the 300 square feet per unit that's required. Last but not least is parking. Because this building, again, is a pre-existing condition, we are permitted to have, or only required to have, the parking for the additional units that we are proposing. In this case, because we're only adding 2 additional units, 2 parking spaces would be required in the code. There's clearly no ability to add parking to the site, and therefore we would request the variance for that. Next slide, please. So just our site plan, a little tough to see, but we can jump back to this for any reference questions, but just showing what the extent of the buildings are on the site. And again, this is for reference purposes. If we jump to the next slide, that shows our basement utility. So as I said, our basement plan, we show storage and utility under the building. That is the 338 Sumner building. And then under the Cottage Street building, it's not accessible. So we actually have no ability to even use that space under that portion of the building. And as I said, we're not looking to add any habitable space in that lower level, even though we would probably be able to carve out enough ceiling height in both of those areas. Next slide, please. So looking at the floor plan for the first level, we would have, we call it retail A. It's about 510 square feet. That's that retail space. As you can see, you do have that existing entrance that already exists at the corner of Sumner and Cottage. And we would have an accessible location as you go up Sumner Street, because it would be a substantial change in grade or the inability to get up into the building with any ramp or anything from that corner condition. So we'll maintain that and add an accessible entrance, which is something that doesn't exist today. And now we're looking at the first unit. This would be on the Sumner Street side. It's about 727 square feet. We're showing that with 2 bedrooms, and I believe we have 2 or 1.5 baths in that unit, Sharon, or one full bath.
Yeah, 1 bath.
Yeah. All right. So we jump to the next slide. As we get to the second level, and this would be unit A2, would be above the retail level, about 615 square feet. And again, most of this is existing condition already. It does involve some reprogramming and laying out of the unit, just to make it a little bit more modern and more, similar to what we would typically see in the marketplace. But that unit is about 615 square feet. Unit B2 would be the second level of the Sumner Street side. That's 692 square feet. And as you can see, that has 2 bedrooms as well. We see the internal stairwells, both front and back. Next slide, please. We get up to the third level, we see unit A3, and that has a total of 1,090 square feet. And Sharon, I believe this one also has the upper level. Is that correct?
Correct, like a penthouse.
Yeah, so it's a bi-level. So we'll see that on the 4th level slide. But then we see unit B3 here at 692 square feet. And if we could jump to the next slide. And these are the last 2 units. So the upper, unit A3 is the upper level of that 3rd floor unit we just showed. And this will be a standalone unit, unit B4 at 792 square feet. And as you can see, we do have that area. This is, as we see on the left-hand side of our screen, that unit A3 pretty much is an existing condition. There is some expansion, as you can see by that gray wall that's identified. And then obviously squaring this off on the Sumner Street side to just sort of make it consistent height with what's already existing on the Cottage Street side. Next slide, please. Then showing our roof decks, we set those back from both the Cottage and a bit back from the Sumner Street side, and then the roof deck for unit B4 is located towards the rear of the property, so well set back from Sumner Street as well. Next slide, please. So elevation-wise, this is looking at the Sumner Street elevation. So we see the retail off to the left and the entranceway to the Sumner Street residential side. Next slide. This is showing it from Cottage Street, and we are showing this as a through condition, so you can actually see the building. You wouldn't be able to see this portion of the building that's on the left side, because that would be behind the 2 buildings that are located adjacent on Cottage Street. Next slide, please. And I believe we're showing the back of the building. This is if you were towards the back, and you can see the adjacent buildings at Cottage. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the last one. All right, so yeah, so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or address any comments.
Okay, so we've got quite a few here, but I'll just kind of go through them chronologically here. So, just, I think you already clarified it, but just
Josh, we need to read out the list of abutters really quickly.
Go ahead.
I have it right here. So these people are eligible to speak out loud. Please use your Zoom function to raise your hand, and Josh will call on you. Jocelyn Mola. And by the way, I apologize if I mispronounce your name.
You got it.
Oh, excellent. Jocelyn Tucker Kibbe, Lily Nichols, Matthew Jarrell, Katie, I'm so sorry, Katie Lascalia, that's what I'm going with, Nathaniel Tassinari, Gerard Picardi, Frank Sinke, and Wyatt Larson. And then a quick question, Richard, could you give us a quick breakdown? I know there's 6 units, but can you give us the breakdown of beds? How many 1-bedrooms, how many 2s?
Sharon, I think these are all 2s, right? Are we going with all 2s? Or do we do any 3s?
I believe they're all 2s.
All 2s.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So Jocelyn, I think you have a few questions that you wanted to ask. So if you want to go ahead and speak, you can do that.
Yeah, most definitely. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thanks so much for sharing this. I do live at 69 Cottage Street currently, and just want to say thank you first for the desire to upgrade the property. The renderings are really pretty, so kudos there. And it will obviously give the neighborhood a really nice facelift. As an abutter, I just have a couple of questions and kind of some clarification points that I need. It would be great if you could pull back up the materials that you were sharing, because I just have a question about the structure specifically. I believe it's number 338 Sumner, that I believe is currently a storage unit that's only 2 stories. So I'm wondering that I believe you're including as part of the L shape, correct? That essentially comes back and abuts to our properties.
Yeah, maybe it's best to call up either our floor plan or a site plan. Whoever's hosting, I don't have access to it.
Susan?
Yeah, give her 1 second.
Thanks.
It's easy to pull down, but it takes a second to get
This one's a little tough to read, so maybe if we could jump to a floor plan, that will help.
Yeah, I think it was in the earlier slides that you were sharing, Richard. If you could, the one that in particular that stood out to me, it's the one that you have, it's like a Google image. And it has the ladder on the roof and the pinpoint. Yeah, this one, and I think maybe the one before it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that structure currently is obviously only about 2 stories, and I believe it's used as storage or whatnot. I know the rats are currently using it as a humble abode. So I'm curious to know, knowing that that's 2 stories, that's going to now have Unit B. I believe you called it Unit B3 and Unit B4 that will be added.
Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe that's our structure. I don't believe that's part of our project.
That's correct. For some reason, Google is putting the pin on
Yeah.
a different structure. 338 is actually.
I think the easier way to do it is we can go to the bird's eye view. I think it's probably the better view. Here we go. Perfect. Yeah, the pin's in the wrong spot. I'll apologize for Google. So our building, interestingly enough, let me make sure I get my here. Yes.
You're at the corner.
You can see the head house on the building at the corner, right?
Yes.
Sort of right. You see the crosswalk.
Yeah.
Our building did an L shape. Our building is going to go sort of to the next roof line and then to the left. So it doesn't go all the way back there. That's not included in our project. We don't own that.
Okay, so that current structure that must go to the property that's probably if you're on Sumner Street, to the right of you guys.
Let me, I can jump real quick. I can look at the tax parcel. I can tell you in 1 second.
I think it looks like it goes to Everett.
Oh, it could be part of the garage structure over on Everett.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell you.
That's what Anthony's saying.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for clarifying. That also helps strike out about 90% of my other questions. I'll still ask them. Sorry, did you want to keep? I don't know if anybody else needs clarification, but I can jump on.
Can I just say really quickly? My apologies for interrupting. Yeah, that's not our property. I'm pretty sure that the access to that is from Everett Street, I would imagine. Yeah.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you. So it is going to kind of, like I said, eliminate a lot of my questions, but I do have some others. I'm just curious, are there parameters for the type of retail business or the business in general that can go on that corner?
So what we're proposing, and retail is such a tricky concept here because we couldn't line up a tenant until we at least know we have approvals. They don't want to make those commitments that far in advance. So the type of retail we're looking at, retail commercial space, is low intensity retail. We're not looking for a full service restaurant. We don't have the size. It could very well be professional offices. It could also be, we show cafe in the rendering. I think ideally we're going to try to find something that fits in the neighborhood. I know there are other cafe or cafe type places in the area.
Yeah.
But this certainly could, blend in and be, possibly something different. We think at 510 square feet, it offers a very attractive, affordable space. We're not looking, Anthony's family is not in the retail commercial business. This is more or less to offer an amenity because it would be very challenging to make this a residential unit. So, we'll probably, as we call it, vanilla box the space and look for a tenant that will fit with the area. If there's additional changes to the type of use beyond what general retail would allow, that would require us to come back to the community anyway. So if there's some, very intense use that we were thinking about, that would have to have a different hearing. But this is a general, very low key use that we're proposing.
That's helpful. Thank you very much. Some other questions. Trash and recycling can be kind of a problem on our corner here. I'm just wondering what your plans are for that, just to help with like rat mitigation and just, I don't know, just general cleanliness of the neighborhood.
We can jump down to the basement plan. I don't know who's controlling, but we can just jump down. I think we have sufficient space in the building itself. Yeah, so we get storage and utility. We have access out and the ability to get, I think this also the ability to get it out from the front. But yeah, we would have the ability to keep and maintain it within the building. If there's going to be anything outside the building, it would be an enclosed structure. So we would just leave barrels out. They'd be left in a sort of a pen, if you will, for for protection.
Okay, that's great, because I know in a lot of the reason there's no alleys or there isn't a place for people to store their bins, so it ends up kind of just going out on the sidewalk during trash pickup. So that would be fantastic if there's a space for people to store that.
Will do.
I have a couple of other questions too, and probably others have similar ones, but I did mention, there's a big rat issue sort of back here. I'm pointing back at the back structure. I'm just wondering about what we're going to do what you're going to do about rodent pest control during demo or, throughout the entire project. And similarly, what is the plan for sort of like dust and noise mitigation, knowing that this is like a highly residential corner?
Yeah, so the good news with this project is, the Petruccelli family wants to preserve the structure. There's good bones here in this building. We're not, this isn't going to be a complete demolition of the existing structure. So most of this is internal work. There will be some external work, obviously, for the siding and the improvements on the exterior of the building. For rodent control, every permit in the city of Boston that is issued requires that the contractor bait and trap and submit its report to ISD before the permit can be issued. It's a condition of your building permit. I would suspect, and again, I'm no rodent expert, that the intensity of the construction for this building would be relatively limited when it comes to those types of issues. Like, we're not excavating the ground significantly. We're not, so most of this is internal demolition and internal renovation. There will likely be, I think the scope of this, and again, we're required to get our own permit for this. If a dumpster is required, it would be a minimal period of time. It would likely be located in front of the building and would be, for purposes of just, removing the demo debris. Again, all controlled by the city of Boston and ISD. We would have to, meet their regulations in order to do all of that.
Okay, cool. And then last questions. I know that this still has to go to vote and whatnot, but do you have kind of a timeline for how long you anticipate the construction lasting, and also kind of when you're hoping to start?
Yeah, so we anticipate this getting to the zoning board hopefully this fall, assuming everything goes to plan and we can obtain our building permit maybe late winter, early spring. That's probably when we would start the project. Depending upon how we phase this, we are looking at a couple of different options. The first would be a phase one, the Cottage Street side, and then phase two would be the Sumner Street side. And that's one of the reasons we would do that is, we want to obviously be sensitive to existing tenants who are in the building. We're not looking at this, so there are lease tenants, and if we're going to make changes to the building, we obviously want to provide opportunity to relocate, give them the opportunity to come back. We want to make sure that we're not, disrupting people's, living arrangement as a result. But there's certainly limitations on, their extent of their tenancy. So we're going to make that decision, I think, once we see the final permit set, because we want to understand there's some challenges here for fire protection of the building. We want to, take advantage of some of the economy of scale of bringing fire protection to the building. The building will be fully sprinkled, so we want to make sure that we're, looking at how that would work, whether it's a phased approach or not. Assuming we do this all as one project, this is about 6 to 8 months of renovation. If it goes phased, it might maybe sneak out to about 10 months to do this as 2 separate projects.
Great. That is the end of my questions. So thank you so much for taking the time to answer them. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great questions, Jocelyn. Thank you. Any other abutters want to raise their hands regarding questions before I go to the chat? Okay. So I have a comment here, just that the commenter prefers the design to be curved. It would be a softer look at a prominent corner. So just wanted to ask kind of about that design choice.
Can we bring up the rendering again? I'm sorry, apologize. So the comment was to have it curved on the front of the building?
Yeah, to look softer on the corner.
Yeah, so we can do the existing, if we can jump back for the existing condition, maybe one slide up. Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, we understand that that might be a preference. I don't know that that precedent is anywhere in that intersection now. And the current condition is sort of a 90-degree, and I think that's pretty similar to what we see in and around that intersection. If we could jump to the rendering, next slide, please. Yeah, so Sharon, I'll let you jump in, but I know that this corner, the treatment on the corner for what you're doing with some of that trim work is definitely an improvement, and helps sort of separate the building from 2 streets, both Cottage and Sumner. If you talk a little bit about that.
And we had looked at the possibility of putting like some sort of bay or curved element on the corner. There's one over above the market, sort of over on Everett, similar to that. But really, because of the way these units are laid out, those are bedrooms, and so it doesn't make any sense to have a giant bay in someone's bedroom. So because we're working with what we have here, if we were designing it totally new from scratch, we might consider something like that. But because we're trying to work with what's there, it really didn't seem like an option that would make much sense.
Got it. And just a clarification here, what is the current height of the project, and what's the new proposed height?
I think we have the elevation. Well, I don't know if I have the existing elevation. So the current height, if you could jump back one slide, please. Current existing height that's probably at about 40, maybe 41 feet. I think we're proposing a total height of 40 feet from the average grade.
Okay, thank you. This is another comment. Aside from the 4th floor, the proposed building faces a nice upgrade. The 4th floor looks massive and disproportional. You already kind of spoke about that with the existing structure.
Yeah, and if I can just talk on a little bit on the 4th floor. So, where we don't have an existing condition, this is already a pre-existing condition. I think the current 4th floor, which is going to be permitted to remain, seems out of character for the building itself and the 2 buildings that we have. What we're proposing to do is sort of, I guess, give that, a little bit more of a feel if it's incorporated into the building rather than just some, top of the birthday cake, I call it. So I think we're trying to come up with something that actually blends in both buildings, ties them in together, and that 4th level will allow us to do that and add some architectural features.
Okay, thank you. A different question is, can we get a clarification on how much the city thinks is habitable of the current space? I know you were talking about the 510. I was just trying.
I don't have the existing number that that ISD has. We do it when we don't have anything specific in the building jacket. We go based upon the assessed records. So I think what I have it as is 1 point, I think I had my zoning slide, based upon what the zoning, based on what the assessing record shows, we have it at 1.35 existing, which is non-conforming. 1.0 is the max you can have. 2.78 would be the full gross floor area of the building. That includes the addition that we're showing on the 4th level, reprogramming of all space and the recapture of all that retail space. So that's not to say that the city ISD records wouldn't have this number higher. We're actually providing the lowest number that we think the city has. ISD could have it higher because they could classify the retail space as additional space. But we think it's, at least 1.35. It could be higher already.
Thank you. So another question is, can we receive the bedroom breakdown of what's being proposed? There are 6 units, but how many are 2 beds?
Oh,
1 bath?
that was mine, Josh. He answered.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did misspeak. One of the units is a 3-bedroom, so I apologize. It was 2 bedrooms, but then with that duplex unit, there's a 3rd bedroom.
1,090 upper bi-level unit, I thought was 3-bedroom, correct?
And then, yeah, the last one is, just to go along with the curve. Is there any possibility to set the 4th floor further back to be less intrusive? As like kind of a follow up on the curve.
Yeah, so the 4th floor, if we could jump to the I think the line elevation is probably better than the rendering. Let's go. Yeah, so that shows it from let's go back to the other one. So this shows it from Cottage Street. So we do set that back. I think that's about 8 feet already from Cottage Street. Sharon, is that about right?
Yeah.
And I think there's some subtle ways to, when we say less intrusive, I think the use of color, I know white, really makes it stick out in the rendering, but we've done a number of these where, the color pattern, from the main building to the upper level can actually help reduce some of that bulk. So we'll certainly look into that and try to remove some of that. You can see also on the far right side of the building, there's a parapet, as you can see, because those windows look like they're somewhat blocked. So we are setting that back a little bit. Is that correct, Sharon?
That's correct. Yeah, and it's about 6'6" off of Cottage Street on the side, and then it's about 2 to 3 feet back from the front of the building.
So
and that's using the existing condition.
Yeah, so we maintain the bulk of those lower levels, but the upper levels get set back a bit.
Okay. I think that's the rest of our chat questions, unless anybody had some last minute ones they wanted to add.
Okay. I'll tell you what, I will start with some of the housekeeping, and then if we have any last minute questions come in, people are welcome to continue to submit them. We will ask for them to be answered before we quit. Just a reminder, the next monthly meeting of the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association will occur on Monday, September 11th. And it will again be here on Zoom. The agenda will be posted a week in advance on the www.jeffreyspoint.org website. As always, if you have questions, concerns, comments, or things that you would like assistance with, please contact the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association at board@jeffreyspoint.org. Again, that is board@jeffreyspoint.org. And we encourage you to follow us on our social media channels. Quick reminder that ballots will come out this Wednesday, August 14th, and voting will close August 18th, which is Friday at 5 p.m. Late ballots are not accepted. Josh, do we have any other questions? Anything come in last minute?
Nope.
Okay. In that case, I will say thank you to everyone who's joined us this evening. We really appreciate your time and your commitment to your community. As always, we are here to help you, and we hope you have a wonderful evening. It is 8:12, and I declare this meeting finished. And Josh can turn off the recording.